are serving. And so you certainly want to go there if you have the opportunity. Once again, you're just going to go to kcbzradio.com and kcbzradio.com. And yeah, you just click that. And once you get there, you'll be able to hear some of the things you're not able to hear. All right. If you're looking for us online and you're looking up KCBZ Radio online, you know, a lot of us are familiar with algorithms. Some of us are not. Algorithms are essentially like something that allows, you know, your internet to kind of cater to what it sees. So like if Julius went online and he looked up the word black, it's probably gonna show all kind of great black heroes and that kind of thing. Someone else might go in and look up black and it may just show a box of black crayons because they're not generally going in. So in that note, people, just go into the KCBZ radio, make sure that Z is there, not to be confused with any of those imitators. Go to kcbzradio.com and check us out so you can get a full earful.
You guys can also call in, give us your opinions, ask us some questions as well. We have 502-509-5229. That's 502
that number again.
509-5229. So just call us in. Call in. We'll be happy to entertain all the opinions because I know we got somebody.
These Africans just riding out of
slavery
and
who loves
the French came
on our
show.
show.
The French was actually coming on the island. You know what the first law of the Haitian Revolution was? The first order: burn the island to a crisp. And that's just what they did. They burnt the entire island. Then they told the French, "All right, let's go. We're gonna tango now." Because it's a fight to the death. Either we win or we die. There is no in between here. Anyone who knows anything about law knows burning property means absolutely nothing. When the Germans were advancing on the Soviet Union, Stalin gave the law, burn everything. Don't let them get nothing. It was the Soviet Union they were burning. It was their own country. They just want to put property value above you and confuse you. Oh, they're burning their house. They don't even belong to us anyway. Well, burn them. Okay, for my freedom, I'll burn anything. You understand? I wouldn't even think twice about it. You understand? So don't let them confuse you. Resistance is growing, and they're trying to stop it by confusing you, which you burn in your own buildings. I'll burn your mama for my freedom.
Hey!
I'll tell you,
oh, wow.
If you think this was bad, let them get off. Skip, you and I, and we've kind of talked about this off the air. If they let this man go, if they don't hurry up and charge these, because you hear the saying, no justice, no peace. What does that mean? Without justice, you get no peace. That's it. And before I turn it back over to you, Skip, there's a saying that we've been saying, I've heard my great-grandmother say it. It's a great thing to be from rural South Georgia and to be able to witness things. Skip, have you ever heard whites in America saying, "We shall overcome"? That's a Negro spiritual. That's a hymn. We shall overcome. If I'm a citizen in America, I'm born, I'm naturalized, whatever the case may be, Skip. If I'm a citizen, why should I have to fight for rights that's given to our white counterpart upon birth? I'm a citizen. There should be no civil rights. There should be nothing. I should be able to get health care, education. I should be able to get employment just like my counterpart. And even then, Skip, we didn't protest. Even though we're undereducated, even though the health system doesn't work in our favor, even though the unemployment doesn't work in our favor, we don't protest that. We protest the brutalization and the killing of unarmed men, and people still can't seem to see and understand why. So that's where I am. I'm not surprised, but they better hurry up and charge these other three, and they better make sure they get a conviction, or they're gonna burn it down again, and it will be worse.
Burn it
no
down.
Justice, no peace. I love how he said that's something that's like so obvious, right? Like you don't get no justice, there ain't gonna be no peace.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you what happened in my mind when I heard that. Now, first of all, I loved it, and I heard the humor. But obviously, you know, this is about something that's not humorous. But here's what came to my mind is like, not only is that right in the one way of without justice, there will be no peace from us as Black people, right? But for our white listeners, for my white friends out there, for the allies who are trying to support, whether or not, you know, I want to share this with you. For those of you who also want to see peace, what's going to happen is, let's say those white people, those crackers who would oppose us, right? We keep defining cracker as someone who has this evil tendency, even though our brother Donald Hurst explained a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to look up where that word was invented. But I want to say this: when what's going to happen is, let's say there was a race war and we lost. If we lose a race war, all of those white people who also believe in a harmonious future, you're not going to have that. Because once someone has that hate there and they don't do anything to service that hate, then what happens is they're going to find something wrong with their own people to continue that hate.
Yeah.
If we don't, oftentimes you've heard some of the greatest leaders in the world tell you that if things aren't done a certain way for these oppressed Black people, it's going to have an adverse effect for everyone else.
Yeah.
It's not we hope it. It's not that's what we're after, but that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't learn rioting because we didn't create rioting and then continue to learn from it. Rioting, I'll feel like Malcolm now. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. We didn't start rioting. Rioting was introduced to us as a method at which people who don't agree with what's happening express their pissivity.
Yeah.
And we were taught that by people that didn't look nothing like us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that it's a bigger, when we say no justice, no peace, it's not just peace for Black people. If we don't address these things a certain way, there won't be peace for others, whether we stay here or not.
Yeah, say it. And you know, to piggyback off that, it's funny, man. That's how you know you have to. That's how you know you have to just do your history, right? You just have to read your history books, and not the ones that they give you in school, because the ones in school is not going to tell you that these things were called riots, right? They're going to say that they were revolutions, which is why I hate the word riot especially when it's used as a term of when it's used how it's used now. This is a response to violence. We're not initiating anything. You have the Haiti Revolution. Some would say that was very violent. That was a response to slavery. That was the first independent Black country. But they got it by revolting. They got it by rebelling. If they were to stay complicit, if they did not rebel against its oppressors, history would have been totally different. But in the midst of it, of course, people called it violent. Of course, people called it a riot, right? Ireland gained their independence by it was an Ireland revolution, right? But in the midst of it, we say that is violent. We say, we'll just go with the flow. We say, well, it's already a system in place. And if you go against that system, you're violent, you're difficult, you're ungrateful, right? Mm-hmm. But then you go back and look at the American Revolution. Nobody calls it American riot, but it was a revolution. They were rebelling against whom they deemed as an oppressor, holding them back from their freedom. Tupac in his song Violent, no pun intended, but he says, look through our history, America's the violent one. But a lot of people don't want to go and look at that history. A lot of people are just okay with calling us violent. A lot of people are okay with calling these things riots. And I think we do have to distinguish a protest, a riot, quote unquote, and looters. So I'm curious as to what you have to say about the current state of the protests, and some being intertwined with violence and looting in Walmarts and Targets and mom and pop stores. What do you have to say about all that good stuff that's going on?
I mean, first of all, it's never just mindless violence, right? And not only that, but I don't actually. There was a point in time where I got triggered when people would use the word riot, and so I would certainly, and I love that you are kind of wavering from that word in a way of you're saying like you're giving example of where what one calls a riot, someone else is calling it its true name of being a revolution, right? But yeah, I think that even calling it a riot, I think when we attach mindless behavior to a riot, then it taints the word. So then what you think of when you think of riot is you don't think about what those who have been oppressed and hurt and you know what they're trying to achieve. You're actually calling it a riot because that, and then that triggers your brain to think that it's just about the looting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so then they become one and the same for different people. When they hear the word riot, it's automatically they're thinking loot. And I mean across the board, black, white, different people who just haven't looked into it. So first I want to say to anyone listening, please do look up. There are a lot of books on the psychology of riot, the psychology of rioting. I want you to look that up, and what you'll find out is it goes right along with what Julius is saying. It's going along with what you're saying in terms of this being a method at how we resolve the revolt, the revolution. So first of all, there's that. Now, the easy part to look at for those of you who, you know, like myself, sometimes I don't want things to be all fancy dancy. I just want something easy I can understand. And so let's look at it like this. If you have a group of people who all share the same pain, and in the midst of them sharing the same pain, let's say they're at just, I don't know, they're just at the park and they're there sharing this pain. Maybe they went to the park to try to get some space away from the pain, but nevertheless, the pain is there. They're at the park. They're talking about this pain, whatever that pain is. They're talking about mental pain, anguish. So they're talking about this mental pain. And then in the midst of that, someone comes over while they're doing this. Maybe they're not, some of them are angry, they're praying, doing different stuff, and someone comes over there and they throw a bucket of paint on them. It is going to trigger a part of you that it's going to cause a reaction, right? So when you have hundreds of years, and I almost hate that people hate hearing that. People don't like us to keep saying, it's been 400 years, it's been 500. They don't want to keep hearing that. Well, guess what? I ain't been alive 400, 500 years. But in my 48 of them, all I know is the oppression that's been handed to myself and my family and people who look like me. Yeah. And if all of us are in the same room and we're upset about what we see happening to us, and then you go throw some paint on us, there's going to be a result. Once that starts, you are not necessarily in charge of 100% in charge of where that direction might go. So I don't want people to confuse people that have went out and, first of all, I'm not dogging those people. Anyone who went out just to take stuff and loot in the store, I'm not judging you. I'm not saying it's okay, and I'm not saying it's not okay. I'm not here to judge that because I don't know the psychology of that person and what triggered that. But what I will say is that I think that as Americans, whatever color you are, you do other Americans a disservice from what our history has shown us. You do Americans a disservice by not accepting, by looking past the point or what's trying to be achieved by these revolutions. these revolts and these riots. There is a core there. There's something that happens that we have to address. It's not just the other parts are just symptoms of it. Those shouldn't be the focus. And to me, anyone who focuses on the person who went in the store and stole something, but you're not focused on the death of this man that was felt by generations of people, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. It looked like Eric B want to say something. It looked like he.
No, you.
Okay.
You got it.
To piggyback on what Anthony was saying, classic. Looting, man. Looting is an act. Is part of war. It's a part of war, man. When you ever see videos, whether it be fact or fiction, or movies, music videos, or actual real, but when cops go into people's houses with the warrant and then they just tear everything up in the house, right? They just go in the dressers, they just go in the cabinets and tear everything and dump it all out. That's part of it, unfortunately. A lot of people don't like it, but that's part of their job. That's part of their role in that particular moment. So when we have all of these quote unquote peaceful protests, that's cool. That's cool. But we are currently at war. And I think it's a lot of people don't understand it or want to accept it because most wars are sanctioned, right? You say, hey, we're going to war with this particular group. Everybody knows it because it's like a diplomatic war. I don't even know if that makes sense, but we say, hey, we're at war with Iraq. Everybody knows it. People don't want to accept the fact that Black people are at war today, and we've been at war for the past 400 years, right? So once we understand that, what Black people do against its oppressors, I'm cool with. I'm 100% okay with, because it's all a response. If this was a piece of a time of peace, well, then it would be different. Then we could talk about, well, why are you breaking into stores? What do you mean? We're supposed to be cool, right? You're not about to break into your homie's house, but you mean to tell me when people are killing your homies, you don't have not enough anger to break some things, right? When if you stub your toe or if something really bad's happened, you pick up the closest thing to you and throw it. I'm not saying everybody does it, but I'm saying when you get really pissed off, you don't say, let me look at the most inexpensive thing. Let me go pick up some tissue and throw tissue. When it happens to you, you might throw your phone, you might throw your water bottle, you might throw your remote. So when I look at all of this looting at a time of war, hey, go get it. Go get it, man. And a part of me also says, what's up to the reparations, right? If you think that 60-inch TV helps you with with your idea of what reparations, you better go get that 60-inch TV. If you think, but it's also sad because to say a 60-inch TV is about $800, just say, it also pisses me off that this many Black people don't have the economic means to go get the things that we are looting. That addresses another issue, because we're talking about racism and capitalism, right? We have to address both at the same time. We can't separate white supremacy with only talking about racism. It's a two-masked beast, right? It's one of those things. If you talk about Klay Thompson, they say he's a two-way player, right? He's not just a shooter. He's not just a defender. He does both things. That's what makes him the complete package. He does both things to be effective. Well, white supremacy does that. It's racist, but it's also capitalist. So it exploits at any way possible. So when I see all of this looting for little things at Target, man, go get it. We are in a pandemic. We are in a recession, probably going to be a depression real quickly. I already seen the effects of what this coronavirus has done to Black people economically. This is just tip of the iceberg. This is just a tip of the iceberg, because we have to fight against a pandemic that's killing us. And then we still have to fight against paid officers who are killing us. So it's two wars, and people still want to ignore the one that's been killing us for 400 years. So go get that money, man. Go get that TV. Go get that, go get them tires, man. Go get them those white tees. Go get those Hanes. Go get those hats. I know it's not really as Kwame Ture said, man, I'll burn your mama for my freedom. So whatever you have to do to be free, everything else doesn't matter, bro. Like, to me, everything, if you're not free, this is not time to talk about ethics. This is not time to talk about morals. If you are not
because it wasn't ethical from the gate.
From the gate.
Right. You want us to be ethical now when it was unethical. What happened? Now you want us to be ethical.
Yeah, just
I'll tell you what, if you know somebody who got some stuff, send them by my house, I'll buy it.
Brothers.
Let me just say that. I support it that way. I'm so serious because
brothers.
Tupac, I remember Tupac said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, you know, first we were singing, and then we was asking for things to change, and then we were praying for it to change, and all that was happening, right? And then he said, but nothing changed. Now, what people want to do is they want to say, well, sure, things changed. Slavery's over, is it? What do you call those people that are still political prisoners in your prisons?
Yeah.
As soon as they made Clintons and all, as soon as Clinton, and then sometimes when I say that name, I'm like, oh, I remember when I was an ignorant Negro and I just was like, oh yeah, Clinton, he played the saxophone, he is black. And loved how he talked and his swag and all of that, but you made it possible for slavery to continue to exist.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether you knew it or not. Part of me think you did. But what I do know is that it still exists. And so I don't know why would we continue? I mean, we're going to continue to pray because we're of God, but I don't know why we would continue to be peaceful if it's not working. Isn't that what they say? What that saying about insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result, trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So we've tried, and then some will say, well, you've rioted before, and is that working? I don't know. It seems to get a lot more attention than peaceful singing. I'm just saying. They'll put a peace march on there if it's enough people, but they'll put it on there, wave the camera around, and then they'll plant somebody in there to disturb that peace so that they can get the footage that they want people to see. That happens.
Yeah.
This is the first time in history that I've heard them actually give it a name. They call them agitators. They didn't even used to give that a name, right? Now they're giving a name that they have these people who are going there. I was there when this happened, when Oscar Grant was murdered by the terrorists. I like calling them terrorists. That's my word that I like calling them. Because anybody who go up in a church and just kill everybody in there is a terrorist to me. All right? Anybody who handcuff you first, then commence to whooping on you, that seemed like an act of terrorism to me. And so I was there when because I had just talked several of my youngsters, I had just talked off the ledge, right, of what they wanted to do, just trying to keep their heart right and trying to protect them, and went there and I saw where it was peacefully being protested, and I saw where the white people busted in the windows. Now, mind you, if you're white and you listen to this, look, I know that some of you are allies and some of you are not. You know that too, so it's not a secret. And look, I saw them breaking in the windows. Now, it did what they wanted. It caused everybody, like once one window was broken, it's like, whoo, anything that allowed shooting in the air would do that at that point, even if a person is peaceful, because you're still full of feelings at that time. So it only takes a little bit to ignite this feeling powder keg at that point. And so I saw where the police, were doing their thing. They did end up arresting those white people, but who they showed on the news was just the black people.
Yeah.
That's all they showed. I was there and saw it. I seen cameras. I seen somebody burn a trash can up, and it was just a trash can. It wasn't even that serious. And then they held the camera and they had it up there and they were shaking it like this and doing like camera things and making, someone's burning the trash, and then, they're throwing. It wasn't even that serious. I saw I was there. That's why they stopped doing well, I don't want to go there. I almost went there with some other stuff. I'm gonna get off on a tangent. Sometimes I tangent out on KCBZradio.com here at Situation and Circumstance.
Hey,
but yeah, it's upsetting. With Eric, you got something for you?
Yeah. I just wanted to chime in real quick.
I got excited, damn it.
It's all right. First off, it was two things. One, I believe that there's two parts. I believe that you can't exclude the peaceful protesters, and I believe that you have to be able to show anger in a way that gets things done, right? So I'm not against the fact that there is needs for revolt. There are needs for uprisals. You know what I mean? Like uprisings. Like those things have to happen. There's a time for war and there's a time for peace. Mm-hmm. Right? Like if we go with scripture, you can't exclude one or the other. You can't. You get what I'm saying? We can't say, well, I'm just saying as believers, we can't say there's no need for war. There is, but we also can't say that there's no need for peace.
No doubt.
And the problem is when we believe that one strategy is higher or works more than the other, then that's when we mess up, because it's all about wisdom when you're dealing with warfare, right?
No doubt.
It's about knowing what your opponent is doing. And I think one of the biggest things that we lack in is our education. And if we're not wise, or if we're not using wisdom inside of our strategies, it's not going to work anyway. No, the second thing that I wanted to ask is because I noticed that we don't have a whole guest lineup tonight, and there's a sister, I believe her name is Kimberly Louise, that Trevor Noah posted, and she broke down some things that were really powerful. We was going to air them here anyway, but I think this would be a great platform if you guys wouldn't mind about let her be your guest for about 5 minutes. She has something really powerful.
Please.
All right.
So I've been seeing a lot of things talking of the people making commentary. Interestingly enough, the ones I've noticed that have been making the commentary are wealthy black people making the commentary about we should not be rioting, we should not be looting, we should not be tearing up our own communities. And then there's been an argument of the other side of we should be hitting them in the pocket. We should be focusing on the blackout days where we don't spend money. But, you know, I feel like we should do both. And I feel like I support both. And I'll tell you why I support both. I support both because when you have a civil unrest like this, there are three types of people in the streets. There are the protesters, there are the rioters, and there are the looters. The protesters are there because they actually care about what is happening in the community. They want to raise their voices, and they are there strictly to protest. You have the rioters who are angry, who are anarchists, who really just want to fuck shit up, and that's what they're going to do regardless. And then you have the looters. And the looters almost exclusively are just there to do that, to loot. Now, people are like, well, what did you gain? Well, what did you get from looting? I think that as long as we're focusing on the what, we're not focusing on the why, and that's my issue with that. As long as we're focusing on what they're doing, we're not focusing on why they're doing. And some people are like, well, those aren't people who are legitimately angry about what's happening. Those are people who just want to get stuff. Okay, well then, let's go with that. Let's say that's what it is. Let's ask ourselves why in this country in 2020, the financial gap between poor blacks and the rest of the world is at such a distance that people feel like their only hope and only opportunity to get some of the things that we flaunt and flash in front of them all the time is to walk through a broken glass window and get it. That they are so hopeless that getting that necklace, getting that TV, getting that change, getting that bed, getting that phone, whatever it is that they're going to get, is that in that moment when the riots happen and if they present an opportunity of looting, that's their only opportunity to get it. We need to be questioning that why. Why are people that poor? Why are people that broke? Why are people that food food insecure, that clothing insecure, that they feel like their only shot, that they are shooting their shot by walking through a broken glass window to get what they need. And then people want to talk about, well, there's plenty of people who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and got it on their own. Why can't they do that? Let me explain to you something about economics in America. And I'm so glad that as a child, I got an opportunity to spend time at Push where they taught me this, is that we must never forget that economics was the reason that black people were brought to this country. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Do you understand that? That's what we came to do. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Now, if I right now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money, I didn't allow you to have anything on the board, I didn't allow for you to have anything. And then we played another 50 rounds of Monopoly, and everything that you gained and you earned while you were playing that round of Monopoly was taken from you. That was Tulsa, that was Rosewood. Those are places where we built black economic wealth, where we were self-sufficient, where we owned our stores, where we owned our property, and they burned them to the ground. So that's 450 years. So for 400 rounds of Monopoly, you don't get to play at all. Not only do you not get to play, you have to play on the behalf of the person that you're playing against. You have to play and make money and earn wealth for them, and then you have to turn it over to them. So then for 50 years, you finally get a little bit and you're allowed to play. And every time that they don't like the way that you're playing, or that you're catching up, or that you're doing something to be self-sufficient, they burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your Monopoly money. And then finally at the release and the onset of that, they allow you to play and they say, okay, now you catch up. Now at this point, the only way you're going to catch up in the game is if the person shares the wealth, correct? But what if every time you share the wealth, then there's psychological warfare against you to say, oh, you're an equal opportunity hire. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa and like they did in Rosewood, how can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the fuck do I give a shit about burning the fucking Football Hall of Fame, about burning a fucking Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give a fuck. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own by our bootstraps in Tulsa, and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so fuck your Target. Fuck your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
Man. Wow.
I know that was a little harsher language than we normally hear all the time on KCBZ, but sometimes I can you gotta let the heart be where the heart is at. And whenever I've watched this a few times, and it gets me just her passion. Mm-hmm. Because what she's speaking is real talk. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you don't have to say something when somebody already said it right.
Say that again, man. Say that again.
And that was mic drop right there.
It was.
That was mic drop. That's drop the mic after that. And there, not only what she said, but the feelings that it, like, that's the part inside of me that when I talk about, I certainly agree with you, Eric, and I certainly am not suggesting to anyone that there aren't any peaceful solutions. I'm not suggesting that we don't use some peace and some more.
Said. We use both, you know?
Yeah. And so I'm certainly not suggesting one, but there's this part of me, like, every year, sometimes multiple times a year, but certainly every year, I go through that. And there's some years when I can take it and handle it better than others. So this year I may be able to ask people to breathe a little bit and just stop and think a little bit and then go into whatever method you think is going to help us the most.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also that person who I remember not doing that because it just hurt it hurt just like what she described. And so I can't look at, because I know what it feels like to be all of that. Here's where, like I said earlier, where just being Black, if you're Black, then whatever, for me, it's like, whatever you decide to do, if it's riot, protest, loot, build, study, pray, to me, if you're Black and you're doing what Black people do because you're Black and you're doing it. I'm not saying that everybody who's Black who does something then that means that, that's okay. I don't want that to sound like a blanket statement over all Black people, but I'm just saying that to say that I also don't want to be the hypocrite who right now tells someone not to riot or not to loot or not to do any of these different things when it's stemming from these things that have happened, when I know what it feels like to be in that situation. I think before I said I empathize, and that's not the right one. That's assuming how someone else may feel without actually being in their shoes. I mean to say sympathize, because I know what all that's about. And that hit my heart, and I had to allow my eyes to just pull it back. I ain't embarrassed to show the sensitivity, certainly, but. Yeah, I thank you for showing that. And if you would, before someone else jumps in here, if you could just give one more shout out to where our listeners can, they can hear that here.
It is. You can hear it here, and it's floating like.
What's her name?
Social media. I believe her name is Kimberly Latrice, but don't quote me. You'll find it. It's on Instagram. Look up Trevor Noah. Shout out. I think Trevor's amazing. You'll find it. Just Google it. Type in anything that you heard, and it'll probably show up. But I believe it's could be Kimberly Latrice. I believe that's who put it out. Or D Jones Media. Check out D Jones Media. Type in some of those things, it'll show up. Yeah. But I also just want to add real quick that oftentimes we disservice the word peace by thinking peace means no action. You know what I mean? And peace does not mean still. There is stillness, and there is a time for stillness. I believe that we are approaching a quick time for stillness, and that doesn't mean stop. Stillness means just to reset and make sure that you're being wise in your tactics. Like like Julia said earlier, it's war.
And war don't always mean physical.
And exactly. And so it's so many different elements to this. And there are so many. I believe that we all have different characters. We all have different traits. We all have different talents. We all have different gifts. And I believe that there is a place for each person to do what it is that they do to move forward. But when we're looking at riots, one of the things she spoke out, like she said, F your Target. But does that mean F your mom and pop store? You see what I'm saying? That is in the community trying to build and add to our community. So I just believe, personally, I feel like, okay, if you're going to tear up, like, don't tear up the things that are assisting the growth, right? That, to me, that does the opposite.
I feel like that assumes thought. I feel like that assumes,
like for instance,
like
and as you
whoever
go
can,
into that, just before
yeah.
I'm gonna let you go into it. But for
Uh-huh.
instance, if they're gonna tear up and riot over here, but then they tear down KCBZ radio while they do it, they shut our voice. That's what I'm getting at when I say the mom pops. You know what I'm saying? So go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like that. So what I agree with in that is, when you are thinking rationally, don't go tear up our shit.
Stuff.
Okay, but I think that when we say that, the key word in there is when you're thinking rationally or anywhere along the lines of that. But what we're forgetting is that everybody who's going out and doing what they're doing, it aren't coming from a place of rational thought by then. No. You're coming from someone just, it's almost like I love the strength that Martin Luther King and all of his followers had to be able to let someone come over and slap your sister and get down and pray. I don't know anybody who's going to do that now, right? I'm sure there's some people who have that strength still. So I'm not, if you notice, I haven't called that a weakness. For you to have the strength to be able to let someone do something in front of you and be able to, and not that he wasn't suggesting don't try to protect or save, but he certainly wasn't saying what Malcolm was saying, right? He wasn't saying, slap me and I slap you back. And so for me, I just want to make sure we're understanding that we assume thought when we say, not you individually for your comment, but those of us who believe that you can think first in all cases. You didn't say that, but you can't always think first or think enough or think at the right time when you are to the peak of being fed up in this way. I'm not saying that across the board for everything a person is annoyed or irritated about, that they get to just do whatever the hell they want. But what I am saying is that I know what I felt like when I saw Rodney King in 95, or excuse me, 90. Was that 90? 92?
Rodney
92?
King? Yeah, 92.
92. So in 92, I know how much I had already experienced up to that point. And when it happened, it was a tipping point for me. And I couldn't the next day, or nor can I now tell you the snapping point, other than to say it just kept replaying in my head and replaying, and then I began to yell about it to whoever was there with us, and the anger filled, and I got to a point where I was no longer in conscious thought of or in control of my actions as a result of losing the ability to have rational thought due to this thing that has happened for a lifetime and how it affected me.
Yeah.
And so I just don't want to, and again, I didn't hear that from you, that's what you're suggesting, but I'm also, from my perspective, trying to share that, hey, I don't want to assume that everybody is always in the position. I don't want us to assume that everyone is going to always be in a position capable of thought. There is someone sitting there waiting for the next riot to go get some stuff. Right now they're waiting. For like, oh, I can't wait till it's another riot. I didn't get to get this. This time I'm gonna hit up this store. I wish I would have got it from here. I'm not suggesting that's not happening, but there's this other side of it, is all I'm saying, where it's like, okay, I couldn't think.
Yeah.
Because I know that if somebody slap your daughter, I don't think you're gonna have rational thought. I think that if somebody slap your daughter, you are going to attack them right then with all you got.
Sorry, I had to do that. I had to do that audio tech part of this gig over here.
It's no good.
But
oh, it done got dark over here.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into too deep into that because of your time is somewhere around 3 minutes or so. But I will say this: there is a different type of strength that's being shown when they do that. Although, like I say, I can't stress enough, they're both needed.
No doubt.
You get what I'm saying? But the strength that Martin and them was showing was strength of faith, and knowing that there's things there are powers that God has that we don't possess. And, you know, for those that are not believers, you can't expect that to be the understanding. You get what I'm saying? But for you can't. You get what I'm saying? It's just like if you don't eat pork and somebody tells you that this was the best pork chop I ever had, they'll just never get that. Well, no, it can't be. Like it can't be the best food ever. Like I don't eat it. You get what I'm saying? And so it's cool. You get. I mean, for what it's worth. But there's a different strength that's being shown in that, and they both need it because at the same time, although they only play. I had a dream as his speech, and they center his whole thing about I had a dream and make him the most peaceful thing. People didn't hear. They don't listen to I've seen the mountaintop. Which is a completely different side. And that's what I'm saying. There's other elements that we only see what is shown through media, which is why I say when they was going down the area over here, which I'm not going to necessarily say where, but as they was rioting, and I heard some pebbles hitting the windows. I was like, "Whoa! Don't jack up your voice." You know what I'm saying? Like, we get to play Kimberly Latrice. We get to say the things that need to be said, and we have to be careful. And I get it; we're not always rational, but in warfare, that's when you lose. You lose when you don't sit back and be rational. War is not a unrational process. Chess is not a game that you play by just making moves. You will lose.
When the war is,
you get what I'm saying?
That make the war from soldiers, or is the war from people who are in a war and don't even realize they're in it, which makes a difference.
That's my point. That's my point. If we're in a war, as Julius said, we have to make sure that we have our strategic plan in place to do something. Now, I'm not disclaiming the importance of riots. I'm not saying that it's not important. It doesn't serve its purpose. I believe that once you start that fire, now you got to sit back and start looking at how you're going to control it. My bad, Julius. Go ahead.
And real briefly before we cut it out, I know it's an old song. I don't know if you brothers know anything about this, but the revolution will not be televised. Are you?
Is that what you want to go out with? Because it's on cue, baby. That's what I'm
saying. Are you youngsters?
Gil Scott.
Okay, we're gonna have to do that. But right before, to your point, and classics as well, it won't be televised. So when we're seeing this all on media, when we're seeing this on social media, that's one part of it. But what's going on behind it, right? So we kind of need that distraction. All of this looting, all this rioting, all of this marching, that's good, but it plays a role. It plays a role. And then there's those who organize and not in the streets. That's the revolution that won't be televised.
That's right.
Because we need them. We need them to take the eyes off of us, right? So this very show could go down. We need them to go march because Dr. King might have been the face of the march, but it was somebody who wrote his speeches, right? It was somebody who organized that very march. He didn't even organize that very march. So that's what I believe the revolution won't be televised. Go look on TV for 5 hours. Go look at Crown 4. Go look at KTVU, go look at all of these things, but we have to be wise enough. We have to be strategic enough to accept what they're to understand how important that marching is, but we have to be smart enough to do something right after it, or not even right after it, but at the same time. We have to do something at the same time they're doing all of that marching in Oregon. We have to. It's our duty. It's absolutely our duty to organize while they're out there doing that. It will be a dishonor to those who are putting their lives on the risk and who are going to jail. It will be it dishonors them. So I love that. I'm glad. I'm surprised that you young cats know that
and for you listeners, he's the youngest of us on here, so you don't know why this is like funny to the other two of us who are part of this show today. And look, brothers, I love you both, and I just want to be honest in saying that, you know, if the police put their knee on your neck and do this to you, I certainly can't promise how much thought I'm going to be able to put into my actions before I get out in the streets and go nuts. And as always, we promise our listeners that we will continue to make beautiful mistakes. We embrace the opportunity afforded by our ancestors to speak. Whether right or wrong, weak or strong, we be learning humans working on liberation and scaffolding a meaningful and fair existence for all. And so, till the next time, my netches, uhuru.
I think I have permission to go out with this one.
Oh, brother.
Don't go out with it if it's gonna be
brother.
I don't know nothing about that.
You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised.
I'm surprised I know about this.
The revolution will not be brought to you by the
Whatever.
Theater.